Seattle in the late 80s was a damp, gritty breeding ground for misfits. Before the flannel, before the MTV Unplugged sessions, and long before the world knew what grunge was, there were just guys living in freezing rehearsal rooms trying to survive.
We were all kind of like drifter, homelessy kind of guys, and we were living in this big, Layne and Jerry were living in this big rehearsal place that had 50 band rooms. The band's open 24 hours, and they were kind of had the shifts, to stay there. They had the keys, and they'd let bands into the rooms.
But Shawn wasn't a late bloomer. Long before he was the engine driving the sludgy, heavy groove of Alice in Chains, he was a child prodigy grinding it out on the old school circuit.
Started playing drums when I was really little, probably 5. My grandfather had a band called Crosscats, and I'd go to their rehearsals every Wednesday and get up and play the drums in between. And when I was 9, their drummer retired and asked me to play parties. And then I became a rock dude.
Fast forward to the late 80s. The underground rock scene was bubbling, and Shawn crossed paths with a guitar player named Jerry Cantrell.
The band started in 87. I met Jerry when we got together and listened to some of these little demos he had on 4-track.
The ambition wasn't global domination or platinum records. It was much closer to home.
Started with trying to play the Central, some suburban guys getting old enough to try to, wouldn't it be cool if we could play the Central?
But they needed a front man. They had their eyes on a local singer named Layne Staley, but Layne was playing hard to get. So Shawn orchestrated one of the most hilariously brilliant psychological traps in rock history.
We really wanted Layne to join the band, but he had this other band going on, and he'd jam with us, but he just wouldn't commit. So we had this idea to purposely start auditioning the shittiest singers we could find. I mean, one guy was even a male stripper. He had like orange hair, looked like the Cowardly Lion. And that was finally the breaking point. That guy came in and was singing, and Layne walked in and was like, I'm joining, I can't let you do that.
Once the lineup was locked, Alice in Chains became a bulldozer. They were at the bleeding edge of a cultural shift, taking the world by storm before the media even knew what to call it.
Somebody discovered that Seattle, Washington existed, and all the music that was going on up there. We were kind of around before that all took off. They had invented the word grunge, a journalist hadn't invented that yet.
But getting their major label debut Facelift recorded took absolute agonizing dedication. Right before they were scheduled to track the album, Shawn broke his hand. The studio tried to bring in a session drummer to take his place, but Shawn flat out refused. He cut his own cast off and played the entire platinum album with a broken hand, keeping a bucket of ice right next to his kit just to get through the takes. He wasn't just a guy hitting things with sticks. He was a driving creative visionary for the band. He brought a unique, swinging jazz feel to heavy grunge, like his iconic drum pattern on No Excuses. He literally dreamed up the idea for their acoustic Sap EP, and he even drew the artwork for their 1995 self-titled Tripod album. In 1992, they dropped Dirt, a heavy, haunting masterpiece that made them absolute icons. But the massive success brought devastating darkness.
Dirt, it definitely came together. I mean, whatever we were doing and all the things we were doing were working at that point. And then they quit working. Where we were at in life, and then it kind of started spinning out of control a little bit.
Following the tragic loss of Layne Staley and later Mike Starr, the band went completely silent. But Shawn refused to let the music they built together just fade away into history. In 2005, he was the one who picked up the phone, initiated a reunion show for a tsunami relief benefit, and got Alice in Chains back on stage, proving he was the true beating heart of the band.
I remember at the beginning of doing it, people were like, it's a cash grab. It's like, there's no money in the music industry too much anymore, man. If it's a cash grab, then why am I writing checks?
For Shawn, stepping back behind the drum kit wasn't about the money. It was about survival, brotherhood, and a flat-out refusal to let Layne's memory die.
When your mom dies, not everybody starts telling you you got to change your name and that you, how dare you go on living, and you can't be you and do things, you need to change your job and everything that you spent your life doing and your career.
Half the reason I'm doing it is to take his legacy and what we've created together forward and move forward with this band and with William and to move on in life. You know, we've all grown, and so that's important to me.
Today, Alice in Chains operates completely on their own terms. They answer to no one, and they make exactly the kind of records they want to make.
We're not a pop act, you know. We're not designed for the masses, and we're not beholden to anybody or anything. And we've always had the freedom to make the music we want. We just make music that we like, try to make sure that we dig it, you know, like the guys in the room, like, yeah, this is cool. And then we've been really fortunate that some other people liked it too.
And despite their legendary status, Shawn still prefers the old school mystique of rock and roll over the modern era of constant oversharing.
I like the old days of rock when you really thought like Jimmy Page lived in a haunted castle. You know, he didn't, you know, but I mean, you wanted the myth of rock, you know, and I think that's kind of been destroyed. It's like, I'd rather keep my mystery, you know, Marilyn Manson's a monster, you know. His name's Brian, I hear, you know, I mean, the guys in Kiss, when I was in Kiss Army, I didn't want to know that they were, you know, just normal guys. I wanted to believe that they were this from space, a demon. And then you grow up, you find out they're not. You get bummed out.
Shawn Kinney survived the Seattle trenches, rode out the highest highs and the lowest lows, and earned his rightful place in rock history.
As you age, they're like, you're a classic rock band now. You know, we're on modern rock and classic rock. And the thing that you used to snicker at when you're a kid, like, you find out to be, wow, that's probably one of the coolest honors if you're one of the people that society and people allow you to be wedged in between Boston and Led Zeppelin.